Got a barebow back in my hand today. Going to finally get around to tuning and finishing setting up this barebow here, this Meta-DX riser, and the MXT10 limbs that I've got set up here as a barebow, and these Super Drive 23s as my arrows. So today I'm going to be shooting the bow and getting it tuned and ready for 18 meters or 20 yards, which is the distance we shoot indoors, at least in world archery competitions. Kaminski YouTube channel. So right now I'm up very close. As you can see, I'm basically blank bale distance, a couple of meters away. And what I'm going to do first is make sure that my Zniper, this drop away rest here, is going to work for basically point on. I will be crawling much deeper, but I want to make sure that this arrow rest drops all the time, no matter what happens. So I'm here up close and I'm going to shoot a couple of shots with no crawl, point on, just to make sure that the arrow rest drops. That's always the first step, at least for me, when setting up this bow, because if the arrow rest isn't dropping, it's definitely going to be affecting the trajectory of the arrow, and we want to make sure everything else is consistent. And as you can see on that shot, the rest did not drop. So, what I need to do, I guess first thing would be to go get the correct Allen wrenches. Alright, so seeing how this is metric, I gotta get the metric wrenches out. And I guess they recommend about a 1/8 of a turn or so in sensitivity per step. We'll try it there. And essentially, I just want to get it to the point of where it drops every single time I shoot it with no crawl. Like I said, even though I am going to be shooting, a good amount of crawl, I still want to have it drop no matter what every single time. That time, she dropped. So, I'm going to shoot it again, make sure it drops again. And it dropped again. And as you can tell, I'm holding a little bit long right now. I haven't shot at all. Not used to the grip Sear. Haven't practiced it. Fingernails a little longer than ideal. Lots of stuff working against me, but I'm going to do it the right way because I'm making the choice to shoot shots the right way and to not just cut it loose. I deal with target panic if you haven't seen me shoot barebow before, and I use a grip Sear, which is extremely important for me to have the ability to even just shoot the bow as intended without having to do drive-bys or have other, target panic induced symptoms. And it's dropped several arrows in a row. I'm going to call that good. I think that is going to be good enough for me to continue shooting. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take it back to 18 meters or 20 yards and shoot at this 40 centimeter face here. As you can see, you can see it. I have a camera here so you'll be able to see the impact points the entire time, which is awesome. And what I'm going to do first is I'm going to find my crawl. And as I'm doing that, I'm going to explain to you why I'm doing that first. Okay, so now we're back here at 20 yards or 18 meters, basically the same. And the reason that I'm getting my crawl first before I do any sort of tuning is the crawl directly affects everything in regards to tuning. Mostly knocking point and then arrow stiffness from there. Because as you change your crawl, the further down you go, the less you draw the arrow back due to the string angle, technically. So it, in theory, should stiffen the arrow. But because you're also drawing the arrow, or the string rather, further away from the arrow, it dry fires slightly before it actually starts pushing the arrow. So it slams into the back of the arrow and it causes all sorts of different things. especially the further down you go it, as I've already mentioned, nocking point being the most important thing affected, because it really ramps up and down and changes the way it's flexing an arrow outside of the norm because I'm string walking. I do have a tutorial created on how to string walk. I'll put a link in the description below and a card at the top up there in case you haven't seen that yet. So in case you don't know how to string walk or what it is, that'll really help you out. And so what I'm going to be doing is drawing the arrow or the bow back, not touching the arrow, going down the string. And all I'm going to do is just kind of go down most of the way down the tab because I'm assuming my crawl is going to be very, very deep due to my low anchor. Now the sun comes out and makes it very difficult, and it is going to be very interesting lighting for me to have to deal with here. So sorry about that. I apologize in advance. It's very tough to get a good camera setup that'll work well when I'm in the bright and everything else is dark in the shadows, and it's a whole thing. I'm gonna crawl down the middle of the yoast, really, really far down. See what happens. Good news is I don't have to crawl that deep. All right, I've definitely found close to my crawl. It's relatively consistent. The last two shots were shot with the same crawl. I definitely struggled a little bit with the grip sear on that last one, but again, I chose to stick to my shot process and do it the right way. It is what it is, and if I practiced, I would actually get better at it. I don't practice because I don't have time. I wish I did. Lots of stuff going on, and it's good to be busy. So what I have found when tuning for indoor archery in recurve, and I think it's even more so important with barebow, is to actually do your bare shaft tuning at 30 meters. Now, why 30 meters over 20 yards, even though 20 yards is the only distance that I would be shooting, right, in competition for indoor archery competition? The reason is that the arrow just doesn't have enough time to plane off one direction or the other when shooting bare shafts at 20 yards or 18 meters compared to 30 meters. 30 meters, you really start to see the direction that the arrow is moving, if it's going to move at all. Oftentimes, if you do your bare shaft tuning exclusively here at this close distance, you end up getting false tunes or false readings, meaning an arrow that appears to be tuned or appears to be fine, when you go back to 30 meters, reveals itself to be fairly stiff or fairly weak. Now, usually at 18 meters or 20 yards, it starts to plane off one direction or the other and starts to stick in slightly angled, right? But it doesn't yet have enough time to take off the direction that it is stiff or weak, or even high or low nocking point. So, because of that, I will be going back to 30 meters. But with barebow, and why I argue that it's more important in barebow, is because of the string walking. It complicates things, especially the nocking point. Now, the tricky part is you have to use your 18 meter or 20 yard crawl and shoot it at 30 meters. So that means I'll be hitting low at 30, so I'll have to aim high, maybe the top of the bale or something. I will put something on the target to use as a consistent aiming reference, and then just work with the actual arrow impacts at 30 meters. Now, again, like I said before I started this whole series, I'm not a barebow expert and I'm not pretending to be. I'm just trying to apply what I've learned shooting recurve at an extremely high level to barebow. And this is how I'm going to do it. Shooting with the crawl at the given distance that I'm at, 18 meters, 20 yards, or which I would like to tune the bow optimally for, but I'm going to do the tuning at 30 meters. I did this for my 50 meter setup using my 50 meter crawl at 30 meters, so you can kind of see the direction I'm heading here. Now, because I have not shot these arrows yet out of this bow, outside of what you've just seen, I have no idea what the tune is at all. And because of that, I'm not going to shoot my first bare shafts at 30 meters. I'm going to do them here at 18 meters or 20 yards, because who knows? At 30 meters, you can miss the bale when you're off a spine or two, right? And so at 18 meters, 20 yards, whatever, up close, I always recommend people to start shooting their bare shaft here to make sure it's close, or at least get it close, before they go back to 30 and doing it. So because of that, and because I found my crawl, and those last two were basically next to each other, they're not great, but it's going to give me enough of a starting point to be able to launch a few bear shafts downrange and get an idea as to what the tune is looking like as it is right now. So again, I'm going to use the same crawl here. They're a little on the stiff side, which is okay. I can always go up in draw weight. Stiff because they hit to the left. Weak would be to the right. Also, what this is showing is that I have a very high knocking point. Too high of a knocking point, at least based on that first arrow. I'm going to shoot another one and probably all three of them and get a better idea, because sometimes one bear shaft will do something funny and the other two won't. So before I get ahead of myself, I'm going to shoot the other two. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you down there and we'll get an up-close view as to what's going on, and I'll explain to you and break it down to you as to why I'm thinking about things the way I am. Okay, so if we take this arrow out of the equation, because that was my first one, still finding my crawls, does not count. These other two are close enough to at least use as a reference point for where the bear shafts are landing. You can see that the bear shafts are landing low, and they're angled at an angle where the tip is pointing down, plus they're hitting to the left, and they're angled to the left as well, meaning the point's going towards the left. So what this is telling me is that as the arrow is coming out of the bow, it is flying like this, where it comes out of the bow and the tip is heading down, the nock is heading up, as well as the point is heading to the left in addition, to that downward angle. So because it's doing two different things, there are two things that I need to adjust. I know I need to lower my knocking point, because if the arrow is coming out of the bow flying like this, that means you need to lower the knocking point to make it fly straight, right? And then, in addition to that, it is heading stiff towards the left. That's what happens when you shoot bear shafts out of a right-handed bow. Left is stiff, right is weak when the bear shafts land right or left, right? So what will fix this is going up in draw weight. I could also add point weight, but I don't want to. Remember, I wanted to keep a very lightweight arrow to come out of the bow very fast. And I backed down the bow weight, to the draw weight rather, as much as I possibly could. So now I can increase my draw weight to compensate for this. Now, it hit here at 18 meters, 20 yards, and due to the arrow flight, I'm guessing it would have hit somewhere in this neighborhood at 30 meters, at least. So you can see how much closer that is to almost missing the bail. Imagine if I had my target face over here, or I was shooting at an indoor range, or some other range that didn't have such a large target butt, and the target wasn't in the center. I could have easily missed the bail if I would have just shot these at 30 meters for the first time. So that's why I do it here at 18 meters or 20 yards. So really quick, before I go any further and do any more shooting, if you're looking for a reference, a tuning reference on how to set up and tune your Olympic style recurve bow or your barebow, because a lot of the same type of things apply, I'll have links in the description below and a card at the top up there to my website, jkaminski.com, which has my tuning book called Tuning for Performance. It's also available on Amazon. I'll have links in the description below for that too. And it's a really nice manual that breaks down how I set up and tune my Olympic style recurves. Many of the same principles apply to barebow. There are differences, and you're going to start to see them here. So again, the first thing I'm adjusting is my knocking point and my draw weight. I'm going to do both together at the same time because it's glaringly obvious that it needs both adjustments. Now, if it was like slightly weak, slightly stiff, somewhere in this area, but it was this low, right, as far low as it was, I would adjust my knocking point first because it may be affecting the stiff weakness slightly. Now, a word of caution, or basically just advice that I've found in the past, is that as I adjust my knocking point, I have to then also adjust my crawl, and because of that, it's kind of like this chasing that I'm going to be doing. As I adjust the knocking point, I'll then have to adjust the crawl, set it again, and it may result in a slightly different knocking point needed, and so on and so on and so on until you finally get it dialed in, or at least close enough to give it thumbs up. Because the knocking point affects where you're pulling the bow back and and all of that, and the crawl, and because the crawl affects the knocking point and all of that, it's somewhat more complicated than Olympic style recurve when you just pull it back in the same place all the time and there's no guesswork. Barebow, there's not guesswork, it's more of an educated guess, sort of, but you can get there. It just takes a little bit more time with a little bit more back and forth on the adjustments. It is what it is, and that's just the nature of barebow. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to go inside really quick into my office. I'm going to cut off the knocking points, and I'm going to tie on some adjustable knocking points so I can do all this adjustment fast for you guys, and then afterwards I will tie some permanent knocking points on once it's all set up. I'm going to go do that now, go tie on some knocking points, and get back with you here in a second. So I moved them down a considerable amount, at least one knock width, as far as like the height, the width of the knock. And what I'm going to do now is shoot a couple of the flet shafts, make sure I can get a close crawl or as close to the ideal crawl that I want, and then shoot some bare shafts. I'm still here at 18 meters. And actually, I'll probably really quick adjust my draw weight because I forgot to do that because remember I was so far off in both directions. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to probably turn the bow weight up about 2 turns, and because it's a large amount, I'm unstringing the bow so I don't damage the limb bolts. 1, 2. Quick check my tiller. 6 7/8. Just over 7. So I'm under an eighth, just over an eighth of an inch. And because I need to go up in draw weight, I'm going to increase the top a little bit more because I want it almost at a 1/4 inch of tiller split. 6 7/8. Almost 7 1/8. So almost at a full 1/4 inch here. So I'm going to leave it there for now. I will adjust that potentially over time as I'm looking for very particular changes in my sight picture and the way I'm aiming. I find that it's very similar to adjusting your stabilizers, and you can actually get a lot out of it if you adjust it by making the bottom tiller bigger. It actually helps you hold the bow up a lot easier. So if you're constantly fighting, keeping that arrow up in the middle, your sight pin, and it's pretty difficult to keep up there, then consider going bigger on your tiller split, and it may feel better for you and actually help you hold the bow up in the middle. All right, so I adjusted the draw weight and I adjusted the knocking point, and now we'll see what the result is. First, I'll get the crawl down. I'm going to use the same crawl as last time, and we'll see how much it changes, if anything. Indeed, quite a lot. The arrow's definitely flying better too, so I think we're on the right path. Almost perfect. We use that same crawl, which is actually the first crawl I started with. So between the lowering of the knocking point and the increasing of draw weight, I hit higher on the target, so then I had to crawl actually deeper. So you can see how there's this back and forth, this progression that changes constantly with barebow that it doesn't in Olympic style recurve. All right, I'd say I found the crawl. Well, I adjusted the knocking point too much, apparently, because now you can see that that bare shaft is hitting really high. Well, that's important to have tight. Yeah, definitely still flying knock low, point high, really indicating too low of a knocking point now. right, so I'm gonna go get those arrows and I'm gonna spin these knocking points up and see if that makes it better. Still leaving a gap. You need a gap when shooting barebow. You'll end up dry firing your barebow if you don't leave a gap in your knocking points between the two, because as you string walk, it pinches that knock and will push it off the string. Ask me how I know. Okay, so we'll do that same thing again. First, find the crawl. Looks like it hasn't changed. That wasn't a good shot, so we'll ignore that one. So it's close. It's close enough to at least get some bare shafts and see if my knocking point's getting close yet. All right, now we're finally getting closer. Okay, so I'm gonna go pull those and get a close-up view of it. It appears that they may be slightly on the weak side, but I'm not entirely sure because shooting the flet shafts, they hit a little to the left. The previous end, they hit right in the middle. I think I just made some mistakes on those shots. So what I'm going to do now is the crawl is plus or minus a quarter of a line on my Yoast tab here. So it's very, very, very close. I'm not an entire line off, and I am very close. Close enough, and the tune is close enough to where I know that if I go back to 30 meters, I'm not going to miss the target at all. So that's what I'm gonna do now. I'm gonna go pull the arrows, and I'm gonna walk back to 30, but I'm gonna continue to use my 20 meter crawl, 18 meter crawl, and see what happens there. And we'll see if there's a different bare shaft result, and then make adjustments based on that. Okay, I'm back here at 30 meters now. And what I'm gonna do is make sure I use my 18 meter crawl, and I'm just gonna aim at the top of the bale to start and see about where I need to aim, and hopefully I can find a good spot that I can consistently aim at and then be able to continue moving forward through tuning here. I'm aiming at the top of the bale because I know it will drop. It's not gonna drop more than the entire height of the bale, at least for me. These are fast arrows, they're not heavy, slow arrows, so it should be close. I just don't know where relative to the target face it'll hit. Well, it landed on the target face, so that's good. See if I can get too close to each other before I shoot a bare shaft. Not bad, just a little left. So I am gonna need some sort of a reference down there, so I will find something to put up on the bale to aim at. Definitely having a hard time left and right because I have nothing left or right to aim at. So now I'm gonna go run down there really quick and put something up so I can aim at it consistently. Okay, I found a nice bright yellow leaf that I put on the bale down there at the top. Not sure if you can see it from this distance. And what I'm gonna do now is shoot alternating flet shafts and bare shafts. Okay. So it looked like the bare shaft hit quite high, showing a low knocking point. As you can tell, way farther away from the flet shaft compared to what I shot it at 18. This is why you come back to 30. And you can see a little stiff as well. I guess I did not alternate my arrows. Broke my own rule. Yeah, very, very, very low knocking point. So I'm gonna go get those, spin the knocking points up, do it with the same crawl until I get the knocking point close. Then I gotta go back to 18 meters, verify the knocking point, or verify the crawl rather, get back here, verify the knocking point, and so on. Barebow is complicated and finicky, especially if you want it perfect. Do I think you need it perfect? No. I think there's a lot more that can go wrong in barebow than the tune. Namely draw length, creep, pluck, target panic, you name it, the crawl, all can be affecting and do affect the bow's performance far more than the tune does. So I'm gonna do my best and just get it as close as I can until I get frustrated, because that's generally, or at least until I give up, not necessarily frustrated, because I do enjoy this. It's just this back and forth gets a bit tedious. Hopefully we have consistency down there, because that looks pretty good so far. Okay, so that's real close. Maybe too high of a knocking point. I mean, it definitely is too high from this point of view, this vantage point. But what I need to do now is go back up to 18 really quick, verify that my crawl is not too much different, because if I get the knocking point perfect now and my crawl has to adjust, I'll be back here perfecting it again. So it's really close. I'm gonna go get and verify my crawl is good still at 18 and then come back here. So those definitely were quite a bit low, the bare shaft, so I'm gonna spin the knocking points down a tiny amount, just like a 32nd of an inch, like very small. Doesn't need to be much. See, it did need to be adjusted. That was a good shot. I'm gonna go get him. Okay, good on my crawl, get back to 30. Can't wait for the ATF DX to come out. Hopefully I'll be getting my hands on a 27-inch one as well as the new limbs. Very cool looking, and hopefully they work out really well. I'm excited about that. Yeah, it took me a little bit too long to get this Meta-DX set up, but I'm still happy I'm doing it because this bow does feel quite good. Need some limb savers though, a little loud still. Not sure why that hit so far left. This is something that I'm noticing. The bare shafts are not at all consistent out of this bow for whatever reason, especially here at 30. I don't know if it's because they're so light and they're kind of critical or not. I have no idea. I'll get there eventually. At least the knocking point is showing me it's correct, but it flew like it had no direction to it. Maybe the FOC is wrong. I don't know. I don't do FOC, but something may be off. It's very inconsistent. It's probably me, my form, among a million other things, of course. But I am out of barebow practice. Being consistent with the crawl is vitally important, and I'm sure I'm not doing a good job there alone. So there's lots of stuff that I need to work on that I'm sure I'm affecting the bow a lot. See what I mean? That one was an okay shot. Bear shaft flew great, just hit a mile high. At least the flat shafts are landing consistent. Well, I'm going to spin the knocking point up a little bit because 2 out of the 3 hit high. I always advocate for shooting 3 bear shafts because one can show you an anomaly, and maybe that one to the left, maybe there's something wrong with the bear shaft, which happens from time to time. I didn't check them. I'm not even at the level to even bother checking straightness, spine tolerance, all that stuff. Not important. Spining lining them, it's really, in my opinion, not very important unless you're going for a very, very high level of performance. And I'm just doing this for fun at this point. It's part of the reason why I didn't do that. Another part of the reason is it's not necessary. I'm not up to the skills yet. Maybe it's an arrow, I don't know, but I'm gonna move the knocking points up because 2 out of 3 are telling me the knocking point's too low. Okay, round, don't know which, lot, many lots. Not a great shot, but good enough. All right, well that one hit left. Maybe that was the one that's been hitting left. We'll find out. I don't have them numbered. That would be one way to find out. I don't know if you can see it, probably can't. That second bear shaft went 2 feet or so high of the flat shafts. Like I said, I think something's not working in this setup. I don't know what. Maybe the very light arrows don't like such a deep crawl. I don't know yet, but I'm gonna figure this out. Maybe if somebody else knows there from experience and can share, please comment below. Help me out and help some people out that are watching in case they're seeing the same type of thing. And then that one lands in the group, pretty much right in the group. So I'm gonna just leave it there. I'm gonna go back up to 18 and take you with me. I'm gonna shoot a couple of ends there and get an idea and just look at the grouping, as well as shoot the bear shafts at 18 and see how they land there too, just in case. But it's very close. You know, they're flying good. At least the flet shafts are flying very well. The bear shafts, they're doing something funny. I'm probably causing it. You know, part of the reason that I wanted to go with this super lightweight setup was to take out some inconsistencies that I would definitely induce into the system, because I'm not fresh, I haven't shot a lot, I'm not very strong. There's a lot that is lacking in my archery game. So I tried to build something that would be the most forgiving type of setup that I could imagine for barebow. But I'm definitely seeing some weirdness as far as the bear shafts are concerned. As far as like taping the back of the shaft to match the weight of the flet shafts, I've never found that to be even remotely important. I've tried it once, didn't make much of a difference, and you know, really didn't didn't affect what I did as far as tuning. So I just don't bother with that. So that's not really even something I'm considering. That would really only affect stiff weak. It wouldn't do this kind of thing. So I'm not really sure, but I'm going to take you up to 18. We'll shoot a couple of rounds there and see how it goes, and hope my grouping is halfway decent as far as the flet shafts are concerned, and maybe the bare shafts will show us something that's going on potentially, but it is very inconsistent. So, you know, I'm teetering on that edge of too high, too low of a knocking point, so it's so close that clearly, at least from my eyes, I'm going to be the one causing impact point variance downrange, and it is not going to be the bow's tune that is holding me back. Could I do some walk back tuning? Yeah, I could do that too. Just due to my experience and all this stuff, I don't feel the need to do some walk back tuning, considering as far as left to right impacts are concerned, I'm hitting relatively down the center with a plunger tension that I would guess I would need with the center shot set how I like it, dead down the center for parallel shaft arrows. Limbs are aligned, everything's good to go, and it feels like it should be shooting well. Okay, we're back here at 18 meters or 20 yards. Put you in a different camera angle so you can see some different stuff that's going on, because it's a little boring to shoot the same angle or see the same angle all the time. I'll tell you, that did not feel like a 6. You're like, yeah, that was a way worse shot. Definitely deserved to be an 8. But the 6, not so much. When you shoot them well, though, they do go near the middle. That one was definitely a good shot. See where the bare shafts go. That could be the one that keeps hitting left. So you can see that the knocking point is at least good as far as the vertical difference of where the bare shafts and flet shafts hit. They're all basically on the same line, so I'm good there. I don't need to adjust that anymore. My left to right spread, at least on this end, is clearly needs some work. So I'm going to shoot another end and see how that goes, and then we'll have a bit of a recap. On a positive note, I have found, especially over the last couple of arrows, if I relax my middle finger on my bow hand side, which is the side that I use as the grip sear, if I really relax that, I can get a much more consistent and a lot faster grip sear action. So that is a very positive development, to have a relaxed finger and realize that if it's nice and relaxed, that the grip sear action happens with much less anticipation and way less tension and way less anxiety. So that's good. That's very, very good to know and to realize. So positive development. Well, I have a group. I'm happy about that. Now that's a good group. 3 decent shots. Last one not as good as the other 2, but still 3 decent shots, and they're grouping slightly to the left, so I'd back down some plunger tension to get that dialed in, but it's very, very, very close. Definitely, I need to get a lot better and a lot stronger. I need to really, really put in some time to get better. My shoulder's already sore. Definitely shot more arrows than I anticipated, and yeah, I need some work for sure. I need to work on shooting some. So probably part of the reason as to what's going on here as far as confusing results. Now I'm going to do my best to shoot 3 more well executed shots and see if I can get some progression and see if I can make some progress here on having some positive results. So I'm going to try to shoot 3 good bare shafts and see where they end up. Again, that looser middle finger for the grip sear. Big change for me, big game changer. I like it a lot. Much better, far less anxiety anticipating the shot. Okay, well then that's at least a consistent bare shaft group with the flet shafts. As far as the rough size, rough capabilities, those three are good. At least those six actually. So what I'm seeing is I need to get better. My form is the problem because those six arrows landed much better when I shot much better shots. And of course, you know, that's the case. How could I expect it? Otherwise, I always know it's always the archer, way more so than anything else. I'm really surprised on the vast inconsistencies of impacts based on slight differences in shots, and sometimes, you know, shots that I can't even recognize that are different. So it is eye-opening to say the least, and maybe I have a setup that's not necessarily forgiving. It is more sensitive than others. Maybe if I shot really well, it'd do okay. I don't know. This kind of thing is very hard to tell, and it's one of the harder things to actually compare is arrows, because you can't shoot multiple types of the same arrow side by side out of the same bow with the same setup at the same time, so you can't see differences in performance that easily. I'm happy with what that shows me right there. The tune is more than capable of shooting way better than I'm capable of shooting at this point. Clearly you can see that in this video where I'm the problem, not the tune. So you can see the rough idea, right? As far as you have to get your crawl, especially here at 18 or 20 yards, 18 meters, 20 yards, because that's what I want to get the bow set up and tuned for, right? And then once I find my crawl, I do a quick bare shaft verification here at 18 to make sure it's close before I go back to 30. Go back to 30, aim high with my 20-yard crawl. Adjust the bow, at least get it close, come back to 18, make sure that the crawl didn't change, and if it did, go back to 30, verify that your knocking point's good to go. If you had to change it, get back to 18, verify the crawl didn't change, and so on. And then there's this progression, and it starts getting closer and closer, and your adjustments get less and less, and you can get more and more critical. And you can get it dialed in very close. So as you can tell, it's fairly tedious, especially with barebow, because there's this back and forth progression. You could probably do all of the tuning at 18 meters or 20 yards and be just fine. But in my experience, I much prefer to do it at 30 meters because I can see a lot more variance in the actual bare shaft's flight, and it gives me a lot better reading on the actual tune. Am I even at the level to where that matters? Clearly. And, you know, I'm ashamed to say no, but it's, what else can I expect? I have not been shooting, and I've not been practicing, and I haven't been working out either. I haven't had the time to even do that, so I have very little overall strength as far as shooting is concerned. So clearly the results are showing that downrange. So I need to do better. I need to have more time. I need to spend more time shooting. I need to get back healthy, lifting weights again, and feel strong again so I can do this better. But I did the best I could as far as tune is concerned, and you know, the results are now showing that. So at least it's very close, and I'm happy with that. So if you have any questions or something like that, any suggestions based on what I'm dealing with as far as the actual bare shaft inconsistencies and all that's concerned, comment below and let me know what your opinion is, what you've seen in the past, and you know, maybe share some knowledge that you have as well, because there are lots of people that watch this channel that have the same issues that I'm even having now, or issues that are slightly different. And when there's comments below on how to adjust and to tackle certain things, especially if you see a question down there, please do answer it, because it really genuinely helps the community out as a whole. And I really am happy and proud that this channel can be a resource like that to a lot of people out there. So thanks for watching, and I really appreciate everybody's support out there. Sorry it took me so long to produce this next step in the series. After this, I definitely am going to spend a little bit of time practicing and getting a little bit stronger, give my shoulder some time to recover, and just get some range of motion and some strength back, so that way I can give this bow some justice and shoot a decent score with it here at 18 meters or 20 yards and show you the results. So next, actually, is not going to be that video. I need to spend a little bit of time editing a video and showing you why you need my precision tiller bolts, which will be coming out very, very shortly. I'm hoping by the end of the week I will have the video up, but it's you know, like I said, I'm pretty busy and I'm trying to fit as much in as possible. So maybe Saturday or early next week will be a video being released on the precision tiller bolts that I have, and I am very excited about those. So anyway, thanks again for watching, and if you haven't yet, do hit the subscription button and the notification bell. Consider sharing this video or any of my other videos. All of that genuinely helps this channel out, and I can't thank my supporters enough. Thank you.